Good morning. This book is especially for Matilda, but for Ben too. Fancy Nancy, or maybe you could say Fancy Grancy. Fancy Nancy, it's one of my favorite characters because she has such a beautiful name, kind of like mine. And I know Matilda likes Fancy Nancy. Look at her with her beautiful glasses and her feather duster. And I have a feather duster. Well, it's not feathers, but it's kind of similar. And I have sunglasses and high-heeled shoes and an umbrella, so I could look just like this beautiful girl. She likes fancy things. Fancy Nancy's by a lady named Jane O'Connor. And Fancy Nancy has a beautiful bedroom. Look at that bedroom. It's got so many pretty things in it. It's got a bookshelf and it's got a lamp beside the bed. And it's got a little special bed for her doll. And there's Fancy Nancy. This is my room. Before she made it fancy, I thought it looked pretty fancy. Look, she's got books, magic for kids. I think she likes to do magic. And Christmas tinsel to hang on trees. There's a special crown for her. Lots of beautiful things in that room. Oh my goodness, look at this bedroom. It is amazing. I think there are so many fancy things here now. Look at the Christmas lights over her lamp. Look at all these things. Look at her tutu and her sash. And her feather duster looks so pretty. And there's her name on her bed. It says Nancy. Okay. My favorite color is fuchsia. You'll have to look up what that color is. That's a fancy way of saying purple. I like to write my name with a pen that has a plume. That's a feather. See? She's got a pen with a feather on the back. That makes it a plume. That's a fancy way of saying a feather. And I can't wait to learn French because everything in French sounds fancy. Nobody in my family is fancy at all. They never even ask for sprinkles. There's her mom and her dad. They're eating ice cream. There's her sister, I think. And she's eating ice cream, but look at Fancy Nancy's ice cream. It's very fancy. There's a lot they don't understand. Lace-trimmed socks do help me play soccer better. Look, she's going to play soccer, but she's got fancy socks. Sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick in frilly toothpicks. Look, she's got toothpicks in her sandwiches. A princess is supposed to keep her tiara on. What's a fancy girl to do? I ask my doll, Maribel. Her full name is Maribel Lavinia Chandelier. Maribel Lavinia Chandelier. Then I get an idea that is stupendous. That's a fancy word for great. Look, looks like they're at the grocery store, and that's a bulletin board. Learn to be fancy with lessons from Nancy. Start today. Easy, fun, and free. She has her ballet costume on, and it looks like she's got high-heeled shoes. Maybe I can teach my family how to be fancy. I make an ad and stick it on the fridge. So look, she saw the ads here in the grocery store, so she made ads and put them on the fridge to be fancy. And there she has her painting board. Plain is yellow, Fancy is gold. Plain is leather. Fancy is patent leather. Plain is glasses. Fancy is sunglasses. Plain, fancy, plain, fancy, plain, fancy. Look, there's her ball cap. Look at the fancy hat she has there that's fancy. Plain shoe, fancy shoe. Plain doll, fancy doll. Lots of fancy stuff. Soon there is a knock on my door. My family saw the ad. They want to get started right away. Look at her being ready to be a good teacher. Just like Fancy Grancy. The trouble is, my family doesn't have any fancy clothes. They just have normal clothes. That's okay, I go find. What is all that fancy word? Oh yes, some accessories. She's finding accessories. Includes her Magic for Kids box and a bag of bows and beads and baubles and silk flowers, tinsel, all those fancy things. I can't wait to see what happens to her family. Ooh la la, my family is posh. That's another fancy word for fancy. My mum twirls in front of the mirror. Why don't we go somewhere fancy tonight? Look at Mum, she's all dressed up. She has a purse, she has bows on her shoes. She's got Christmas ornaments for earrings. And the little girl is also all dressed up with a big bow as well. And here's Dad. How about dinner at the King's Crown, Dad suggests. Wow, my parents are acting fancier already. Look how happy Nancy is, dancing, jumping up in the air. Dad looks pretty spectacular. Maybe Ben and Matilda, you can go and make your mummy and daddy dress up fancy. You can get all the accessories and make them look really, really beautiful and fancy. I bet you your dads would like that, and your mums. And here they are, all dressed up together. Look at their beautiful outfits. And now, when we arrive at the King's Crown, everyone looks up. They probably think we are movie stars. Look at Mom, look at her fancy hat. I think it's made from one of Nancy's skirts. And look at the little girl, she's got wings. And Dad has a funny hat, a magician's hat. Oh, that's Nancy, I thought it was the little girl. Here's the little girl, the little sister. I am so proud of my whole family. They each with their pinkies up and they call each other, darling, can I have some salt and pepper? For dessert, let's have parfaits, my mom says. That's French for ice cream sundaes. Amazing, my mother knows French. Look, doesn't that look delicious? Here comes the parfaits. When our parfaits are ready, I curtsy and say, merci. I think it would be really good if you learned how to curtsy too. I'll show you how after. I carry the tray like a fancy waiter. Uh-oh. Look at her shoes. Her ribbons came undone on her beautiful ballet shoes. The tray does a double flip. I don't feel fancy anymore. But we all make those kind of mistakes, don't we? I want to go home. Aw, Mom's helping her. Everyone's trying to help her. Look, even little sister's trying to give her her crown back. Pages don't want to turn. After I get all cleaned up, I put on my dressing gown. Those are fancy words for bathrobe. I feel much better. I'm ready for a parfait. Look, they have all the stuff at home to make one. Chocolate sauce, whipping cream, my favorite. And sprinkles somewhere because look, there's sprinkle. Oh, there, he's got a jar of sprinkles. I tell my parents, thank you for being fancy tonight. I love you, my dad says. I love you, my mom says. And all I say back is, I love you. Because there isn't a fancy or better way of saying that. What a beautiful story. And that's Fancy Nancy, eating parfaits and being all dressed up fancy. And if you want to curtsy, you should all learn to curtsy when you're a girl. Matilda, you hold your skirt or your pants and you put one foot behind the other and you bend down, and that's a curtsy. And then you can do it with the other foot. That's a fancy thing to do when you see somebody. And Ben, boys don't usually curtsy. Boys put a hand here and a hand behind and they bow. Can you curtsy and bow? Stand up, Ben. And let's see you put a hand here and a hand here and bow. And Matilda, hold on to your skirt or your sweater or your pants. Put one foot behind and curtsy. It was great talking to you guys. I hope you enjoyed Fancy Nancy.